into the Sportscaster and her son, where sports bridges the gap between the generations. It's Peggy and Jason back with you for another episode. Post-Bears draft, post-NFL draft. Jason, I think that it was a unanimous that people love who the Bears got in the first round with Dylan Thieneman. We talked about that on our own podcast, that we were hoping that the safety would fall to them. Everyone loves it. Maybe a little surprised that they got Logan Jones, the center, as their second pick. I'm not so sure if they needed to go that high to get a center, but they are going to need a backup center, especially after Drew Dahlman suddenly retired last year. Garrett Bradbury seems to be just kind of a little stopgap. But your thoughts overall on at least the first couple of picks?
Yeah, Dylan Thieneman falling to the Bears. I mean, what a win for them on night one of the NFL draft. He was not expected to fall into the 20s, even as late as Thursday. And so for him to fall down to 25, the Bears didn't need to move up. It seemed pretty cost prohibitive to move up in this draft period anyways. So for them to get one of the guys who was certainly near the top of their board when the clock started on day one without having to give anything up on day one was fantastic. He fills an immediate position of need. He's a turnover takeaway machine. We talked about this in our last episode, how the Bears are going to need to find a way to replace all those takeaways. This is the perfect immediate and long-term replacement to Kevin Byard, in my opinion. So I think his versatility is going to be welcomed from day one. He's a great athlete, and he's the type of personality that I think Bears fans are going to latch onto on the defensive side of the ball immediately. So the day one pick was fantastic.
Now, I know Iowa center Logan Jones. Listen, they call him Tyler Linderbaum light. Okay, he's not Tyler Linderbaum.
It's a lazy comparison, if we're being honest.
But that's what people are calling him. He's not Tyler Linderbaum. But when you are a six-year senior on the best offensive line in the nation, and you also pick up the Remington Trophy as the nation's top center,
small deal.
You know, the Bears need a center that grows with Caleb Williams. So not these stopgap veterans.
Very true.
So I don't hate that pick. I understand why they did it. But what happened after that was all the defensive edge rushers and tackles went flying off the board.
Yeah, and Ryan Poles said on Friday night that it was a little too expensive for them to move up in the second round once those guys fell off the board. The thing that annoyed me about that is, like, he acted like it was such a foregone conclusion that was going to happen. And if they thought that was going to happen, then why didn't you move up weeks ago? You know? They had 3 day 2 picks, turn 2 of them into a top 40 pick. And then, you get your edge rusher of the future. That was definitely my only gripe with the draft. I think what we forget is that the Bears essentially have a bonus second rounder this year with Shamar Turner coming back. And Shamar Turner coming back gives the Bears a crowded edge rusher room. It's not a stacked edge rusher room. It's not a good edge rusher room, but they have options, more options than they had last year too. So, I kind of understand why they didn't prioritize edge as much as we thought they would. The Logan Jones pick was good. I think that they need a center, like you said, to grow with Caleb Williams. Kind of bears a question of, man, who would they have picked if Drew Dahlman didn't retire? Maybe they would have went and got an offensive weapon a little earlier. Maybe they would have added a linebacker. Maybe they wouldn't have traded back and taken Anthony Hill, the linebacker from Texas. So, there's so many what ifs that we can do. I understand why they settled on the center pick when they did. I understand why they didn't go edge rusher when they did. Not what I would have done, but they're the ones who are NFL executives. I'm not an NFL executive. And based on the last 12 to 18 months, I think we kind of got to trust their process.
Jason, after everybody was so excited about the Bears' first round pick, even the second pick in taking a center, all jaws dropped wide open when they took a tight end with their third pick. And to help us figure this out and bring us all down a little bit is former NFL 14-year veteran, Super Bowl champion quarterback Trent Dilfer, who is joining us. Trent, thank you so much for joining us. Chicago's a little up in arms over Sam Roush. They're not quite sure what to make of him, but you coached him. So So tell us about why this is going to be a good pick for the Bears.
Well, I'll give a couple of different perspectives. One, I'm biased on Sam. Obviously, I coached him here at Lipscomb Academy. He was the most dominant player in Middle Tennessee his senior year, helped us win a state championship, and love him like a son. But I'll give you the global look too. You know, I have 3 tight ends on the roster that are all very, very impactful players with Kmet, Loveland, and now Sam Roush. One, it's more affordable than paying receivers. So I think there's always an economic decision to everything front offices are doing right now. How do you have sustained success over time and re-sign your players? It's going to be much easier to re-sign tight ends to long-term deals than superstar receivers. So now your receiver room can shrink a little bit and your tight end room grows. You still have very talented receivers, but you only can play 2 of those if you have 2 tight ends. So you don't need 5, 6, 7. You also don't need to pay 2 an enormous amount of money. It saves you the ability to pay 1 of them. So I think that's something that most fans don't understand. If you saw what the Rams did last year, what McVay did last year in LA was playing these 13 packages that can spread out into 12 pictures and 11 pictures and even 10 pictures for the defense. Forces defense to get out of their base nickel fronts, which everybody's in these days. Forces little guys to play against big guys, and big people beat up little people. I mean, that's been going on in football forever. So the bigger you can get and the littler they are, the more advantages you have offensively to run the ball, play action, and then match up these big bodies on little people. So I think it's incredibly tactical by the Bears. And now to Sam Roush, he's an amazing human. He's an amazing competitor. He's an absolute monster. And will prove everybody in Chicago will love Sam Roush over time. He's a Bear. Hey, listen, I got beat up by the Bears for years, so I know what a Bears football player looks like and how they should play, and he fits the Bears culture very, very well.
Tell us a little more about Sam as a person. You kind of alluded to it a little bit. He went to Stanford, so he's got to be a smart guy. Tell us about him.
He's not just smart. He has incredible emotional intelligence as well as intellectual intelligence. He's a great teammate. He's a great friend. He's an incredibly hard worker. He can figure things out. I think that's something that the Bears probably realized in the draft process was his football IQ and just his awareness scale is incredibly high, and he'll be able to contribute and have an impact as a rookie because nothing will overwhelm him. He was actually coached very well at Stanford. They didn't have a lot of success, wins and losses, but they had very good football coaches that taught him a lot of football. So he'll come in NFL ready. He ran a lot of NFL schemes. He's super versatile. He's way more impactful in the passing game than I thought. The TV coverage, I didn't watch a lot of it, but we watched that. We had a whole draft party for Sam. So I was listening to all these guys that I used to work with at ESPN, and I think they actually whiffed on Sam's valuation. He's a tremendous pass catcher. He's incredibly violent with his hands. If your arms aren't incredibly long, listen, a lot of Hall of Famers don't have long arms. I do believe in length, and I do think long arms matter, but you can make up for long arms with unique foot quickness, foot placement, and his feet for a 6'6", 265-pound man are elite. Not good, they're elite. So he'll make up for some of that with his feet, and he knows how to use his hands and his arms. He's been taught ever since he was here at Lipscomb how to strike people, how to shed, how to maintain blocks. So he's tremendous in the arm-hand combat game, as we call it, geeky football terms, but he'll be tremendous in that. And that's what you see on tape. Like when you watch his tape at Stanford and when you watch him go all the way back to a senior in high school, he's a physically dominant presence in the passing game and in the run game.
You know, it's interesting. One thing we're finding out about Ben Johnson is that he wants maulers. He wants guys that have an attitude, whether they're playing either side of the ball. And I think with Sam's background, I think when you see former rugby player, like immediately you say, oh, this is the type of guy that they're going to like.
Yeah, and it's in his blood too. You know, he's got pedigree, tremendous genes in his family, all incredibly unique competitors. Use the term mauler. I would just use unique competitive temperament. They're assassins in between the white lines. They're gentlemen and ladies outside the white lines, but you get them inside the white lines and they're straight assassins. I think, Ben's, there's very few coaches I truly, truly admire anymore. Ben's one of them for that reason. He has all the flash and sizzle of the cool stuff on offense, but his core is in physicality and grit and toughness. And, that's a timeless principle in football. So even though I'm a quarterback, I benefited from gnarly maulers on defense and gnarly maulers on offense. And that's how games are won. You get jobs by being pretty in the pass game. You win championships by running the ball and stopping the run and being maulers and gnarly. So Sam fits that. It's in his genes. Like, it was never hard to teach Sam how to be gnarly. He taught our team, he taught our culture how to be gnarly. And I think he did the same thing at Stanford.
I think the thing that a lot of fans are wondering, not me, but a lot of fans are wondering, is how does Sam fit in with Loveland and Cole Kmet? Mm-hmm. You talked about how 2 tight ends is a good situation to be in the NFL, but what about 3?
Well, it's a huge tactical advantage these days. Again, most of these defenses are based out of a nickel front, and they NFL rosters are small. In college, you have enough people to have a nickel defense and a base defense. And you kind of share reps equally because you're going to see some 12 personnel, you're going to see some 11 personnel. And the NFL is primarily become an 11 league. And that's why you see these teams that can get in 21, 2 backs, 1 tight end, 2 wide receivers, 12, 1 back, 2 tight ends, 2 wide receivers, 13, 1 back, 3 tight ends, 1 wide receiver. Now you force that nickel, who's a really high paid player and a very versatile player many times. But now you force him into the line of scrimmage run fits. You get him having to play out of his comfort zone. You get him out of his comfort zone, and all of a sudden they're recruiting people to the line of scrimmage to stop big boy football. Now they're vulnerable in the secondary. You can create matchups. It's really easy to move these tight ends within the core. So you can have a 3-by-1 set. Next thing you know, that's a 2-by-2. You can have them in the backfield as semi-running backs. They can split out and play receivers. So you can give the defense a lot of pictures, force them to align. Who's the tight end? Most offenses are based off Y strength. So if Ben can show Kmet 1 week, that's how you say it, right? Cole,
yep.
Kmet 1 week as the inline Y, and then Loveland's the inline Y, and then Sam Roush is inline Y. Well, how do you set the strength of your defense? And all of a sudden your field boundary. You're in a guessing game defensively. So more tight ends on the field typically means more offensive tactical advantage if they can be explosive in the passing game. And I guarantee you right now, they'll deny this, but I guarantee you right now the Bears are studying the Rams last year's 13 personnel packages. Ben's going back to the Lions Day and looking at their 13 stuff. He's looking at colleges that run 13 stuff. The more cool things you can do out of 13, the more, effect it has on the defense. And now you're also preparing against something new. So think about it. If you're the Lions, you're preparing against the Vikings 11, then you're preparing against whoever. You throw out a team, the Packers 11, and then you're preparing against New England, they're 11. Well, now you got the Bears on your schedule. Well, you just spent 3 weeks preparing against 11. That's what your players are comfortable playing against. That's all your schemes are. Oh, crap, we got to go play a 13 team. We got to go back to OTAs when we install 13 or take our short yardage defense and grow it out. So you're really ruining their practice and their preparation as well. And any great offense coordinator, one of his goals is going to be to ruin your practice as much as create a tactical advantage.
Yeah, Bears were top 5 last year in running 13 personnel, and I think they were 7th in running 12 personnel. So it's definitely trending that way with Ben Johnson. I want to go back to something you were referencing, Trent, and that was the lineage, the genes of Sam Roush. For those of you who don't know, his dad, Phil, played in the NFL for 7-8 years. His uncle, or his dad's brother, I should say, was Merlin Olsen. I mean, hello. And then there was a third brother that also played in the NFL. So even though he traveled—
Yeah, but the mom doesn't get enough credit. Let's give Brooke Roush way more credit. Brooke Roush was a superstar athlete. Yeah, his mom was an incredible volleyball player. He raised a lot of the toughness and grit. I talk about easy kids to coach. His sisters are really successful athletes as well, very smart. Brooke, the mom, and I've learned this now in high school, failed at college, but now back at high school. You recruit the mom more, you recruit the dads and the brothers and all that stuff. You definitely focusing on the moms because then who's going to be, how that kid's going to be wired. And Brooke is wired uniquely.
I love it. Well, his dad also was in the tech industry for a while there. And so I know that they lived all over Asia. He talked about that in his press conference, and didn't play American football until what, high school? So is he raw? Like, how soon do you think he could be NFL ready?
Oh, he's NFL ready. They'll see it in training camp. There'll be nothing that catches him off guard. He was really well coached in California, where he started to go to high school. It's actually where my daughters went to high school. That was the connection. My daughters and Sam went to the same high school in California. When the Roushes were moving out east because of Luke, the dad's business, they had a comfort level with not just the school we go to, but with me. And then he was very well coached here, and he was very well coached at Stanford. So there was never really raw. You know, we played him primarily at defense his senior year. David Shaw, his coach at Stanford at the time, and I talked a lot about it. We really felt like Sam was going to be an NFL player. Even when he was a senior in high school, you could kind of see it. But we felt like he needed to become more violent with his hands, learn how to play with his hand in the dirt, become more of an intimidator. He was a very skilled receiver and tight end his junior year, and we really wanted to turn him into a dog. And David and I decided to have me train him at defensive line, and he still played tight end, but he was by far the most dominant player in Middle Tennessee his senior year. I mean, he almost single-handedly won us a defensive championship. So he's quite the player and very much ready to play in the NFL.
My last question for you, you said that you think that he was misevaluated by a lot of the big-time draft analysts. Give us a player comparison. Who do you see him kind of mirroring in the NFL?
You know, I don't watch a ton anymore. I did that for 9 years. That was my job. I dabble in NFL stuff now. I really just follow my friends and the teams I'm close to. But this Colby Parkinson for the Rams, I think there's some real similarities there. I haven't watched Colby in the run game as much as I probably should, but I would think in the next few years, Sam is going to be on the list of one of the top, 15, 20 tight ends in the league. He's a lot more than just the third guy. I think that would be the message I would leave, is just wait and see. When I did the draft, all those years I did the draft, this is the week of everybody's talking about the draft as it relates to next year. And that's important. Everybody's trying to win next year, but really you evaluate this draft about 3 years from now. Like, if you really go back and look at the best drafts and the best draft analysts, they go back and evaluate the 26th draft in like 29 and 30. Because that's right before that fifth-year option comes up. That's when if they've made the team, made Pro Bowls, help you get into the playoffs, if they're doing all the things you've drafted them to do in the first 3 rounds. That's when really these players come to fruition. I think you'll look back at this draft of the Bears in a handful of years and realize that the third-round pick was one of the steals of the draft.
Trent, we call this podcast the Sportscaster and Her Son, and we are generations apart. And I. So we're going to spend the rest of the podcast. I will explain to him who Merlin Olsen was.
Okay,
and
perfect.
Full House on the Prairie was.
You probably have to explain who I was. Like,
No.
Yeah.
I was the one who reminded her that you are a Super Bowl champion. My mom didn't remember that. I remember that, and I wasn't even in school yet by then.
Yeah, well, listen, I was covering the Bears for the last 25 years. There wasn't we had one Super Bowl trip in that 25 years. So
some of their best football was played against me, though. I never played very well against the Bears. So I still wake up in the middle of the night with cold sweats about playing there. So. Hey,
but before we let you go, you're at Lipscomb Academy right now. Is there any guys that we should keep an ear open for coming up through the pipeline?
I would say I have 2 next year. Brian Longwell, who's a starting inside linebacker for Vanderbilt. He'll be a draft pick. Junior Sherrill, his teammate at Vanderbilt. They should both be draftable players. Brian probably pretty high, I would think. And then in a couple years, you'll see a lot more, and hopefully we bring a crop of them back to Lipscomb. So that's why we're bringing in Nick Saban on May 8th to talk to our community, because we're only bringing in the big dogs around here.
I love it. Trent, thank you so much for the time. We really appreciate it.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mom, that was awesome. Getting to talk to Trent Dilfer, Super Bowl champion quarterback, former UAB Blazers head coach, now head coach at Lipscomb Academy in Tennessee. He had some awesome insight on Sam Roush. You could argue maybe the most valuable insight on Sam Roush.
I'm telling you, I knew that there was a big trend with tight ends. I didn't exactly understand why, but he's exactly right. The Bears are going to have to pay their wide receivers coming up. And this is a great way of not having to do that. So I'm leaning more towards liking the pick. It just seems that it was so early for them to go with a blocking tight end. But I guess I understand it. I guess third round, we'll see.
I got to be honest, hand up, I always love the pick. I definitely had my jaw dropped a little bit when the tight end was announced, but I was familiar with the name Sam Roush during the draft process, and I understood almost immediately why the Bears wanted to upgrade that tight end 3 position immediately, because Durham Smythe was really bad last year. And if you remember, sort of the Bears' Achilles heel was those 4th and 1, 3rd and 1 situations towards the end of the season. And if they're going to get a 75% production increase on 25% of snaps, arguably the most important 25% of snaps on the offensive side of the football, that's pretty invaluable. This is the way that the NFL is trending, and sometimes it takes us media types and fans at home even longer to latch on to the way that the NFL is trending. But I think Trent Dilfer's completely right. Having 2 really formidable tight ends, but 3, maybe even 4 options who you can rotate in and out at any time is definitely the way that the NFL is moving right now.
There are other picks that they ended up taking day 2, LSU wide receiver Xavier Thomas, really a return guy.
Yeah, you say wide receiver, he's like an H-back.
He's a gadget guy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And the last time they did that on day 2 was Velus Jones. So
yeah, I know. 4th round, they traded up to get Texas cornerback Malik Muhammad. They traded up again to get Georgia Tech defensive lineman Jordan Vandenberg, giving away both of their 7th round picks. So, Jason, of those,
don't forget about Keyshawn Elliott.
Keyshawn Elliott, the linebacker out of Arizona State. That's right. I'm sorry about that. That was 5th round.
Yeah.
So, we have Xavier Thomas, Malik Muhammad, Keyshawn Elliott, and Jordan Vandenberg. Of those guys, who stands out to you the most?
I really like Malik Muhammad. Of
course you do, Mr. Texas.
Of course I do, right. But I covered him his freshman year at Texas. I followed him these last 2 years at Texas. He's got pro makeup. I mean, this is a guy who you can immediately slot in as a difference maker. Talk about 4th round. You're looking for guys who you can count on to make any sort of an impact, and he's going to make an immediate impact. He's good in coverage. He's a great athlete. He's quick. And like I said, he's got that pro pedigree. He was a 5-star recruit. He played at a blue blood college program. He played 2 years in the SEC. So he has, really good, firm college football experience. Things that you really want on day 3 of the NFL draft. And when we look at the cornerback position for the Bears, between him and Za Frazier, one of them is going to be good. I like betting on one of them being good. If they're both good, then, man, you're talking about a good cornerback corpse behind Jalen Johnson. So I really like the Malik Muhammad pick, both because it was a position that you needed to add depth at, a player that can help you immediately, and lastly, a round that usually you just want to find guys that can help you ASAP.
Well, Malik Muhammad's a guy that some thought he would go earlier than 4th round. Another guy that people think that they got to steal was Keyshawn Elliott. Listen, you can find linebackers, starting linebackers that go undrafted in the NFL. Linebacker is such an interesting position in that these guys can fall. I think that it's going to be interesting what he does. But the guy I really, really like is Jordan Vandenberg. If only because he's just got such an interesting background that he's a guy that the coaches were apparently doing like pounding on the table for. They wanted him. He's raw. This is truly a guy, an Afrikaner, South African,
Yep.
very late to American football, a guy that the coaches, I think, feel like they can really get their hands on and help mold into an NFL player. Another rugby guy. He moved to the U.S. For opportunities. He's very explosive, very twitchy. And what the heck? His grandfather was in the Mr. Universe with Arnold Schwarzenegger. So this is another Mauler type of guy. And I think that I, of all people who have said, I am tired of them relying on their coaches, Shamar Turner, Austin Booker, Jervon Dexter, let's keep going. Let's keep naming. Oh, Dio Adangbo. These are guys that have to take the next step.
Yep.
And really, Ben Johnson put the onus on his coaches. He said in his post-draft press conference how they weren't good enough on defense, but they liked the guys that they have in the defensive rooms, that the coaching has to be better. So we're going to find out, Jason, whether Ben Johnson is right. And if indeed it's going to be put on the coaches, then I'm hoping we see a big leap forward and Jordan Vandenberg can be a very interesting player in another year or two.
Yeah, like I kind of said earlier, my final thoughts on this year's draft is we got to trust the Bears process, the Bears development, because they deserve the benefit of the doubt after the last season on the field, the last 18 months really off the field. And so, for each of these picks, I trust that they fit into this Bears, future plan in a better way than us at home could kind of quantify. We can kind of try and make sense of the order of these picks and why they didn't go edge, why they went return man in the third round. But at the end of the day, they have their reason. And I think that we're seeing a little more so the effect of Ben Johnson being very involved in this draft process and getting to kind of hand select guys who fit his offense, whether it be Logan Jones at center or some of these skill players, Sam Roush, the blocking tight end, also receiving tight end, as Trent Dilfer told us. And then Xavier Thomas, gadget guy returner, Velus Jones 2.0, whatever he is. I trust that the Bears are going to make him into the best version of himself.
It'll be interesting. Bears are getting through their first phase of the next season, and the next will be the mini camps with players reporting. You don't get to see really a lot from that, except, like I said, I think we're going to be watching a lot of the defense this year, just to see what kind of developments they make. So another fun episode, Jason.
Absolutely, Mom. We'll talk again next week.
Yeah, don't forget, everyone, you can follow us on YouTube. You can also check us out wherever you listen to your audio podcast. We are available there and on the ESPN Chicago app. So thank you for checking us out again. Tell your friends, tell your neighbors, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Sportscaster. Bye, Jason.
Bye, Mom.